Okay, so my job, according to Pete, was to talk about coaching pitchers. Now, I think there's a difference between teaching and coaching. Teaching is a one-way thing. I'm the teacher, I teach the students, the information's going in one direction. But we don't teach when we're on the field, we coach. And so I like the title there, coaching pitchers. So instead of me just telling people how to pitch from A to Z and just teaching pitching, I'm going to do more coaching, which is a two-way street, because coaching involves looking at the kid in front of you, analyzing what that kid's doing wrong, and then coming up with a strategy, a unique strategy, to try to get that kid to be a better pitcher. Now, of course, any pitching coach can make pitching as complicated as possible, but that's not going to help you guys, okay? I can look at some coaches' eyes, and their first question is, Coach, I don't care about my kid getting movement. I don't care about a two-seam versus, I don't care. Tell me how to get my kid to throw it within 12 feet of the catcher, okay? That's all I need to know, okay? So I get it. So every time I do presentations, particularly for Little League coaches, I try to water it down, I look at it, and then I basically cut it in half even more, okay? Because sometimes I think we pitching coaches make things much more complicated than it has to be, okay? So I'm going to go through 5, what I see as the most common youth level mistakes. So I've been fortunate, I've coached at pretty much every level, from my 8-year-old son teams, travel team, all the way up to major league pitchers. And so I've seen a lot of common mistakes at every level. And so that's what I'm going to focus on today, because I think that's more practical for you guys when you get that kid in front of you. Give me something I can do when the kid is in the moment, and what can I say to that kid when he can't throw strikes. That's what I think is more practical for you guys. So in the first part of here, the first mistake is just starting off the bat with a poor grip of the baseball, okay? So I have some things here that we can just, simple things that we can focus on. First off, fingers, seams, and thumb. Little kids, depending on their hand size, are going to have to either use 2 or 3. A lot of kids are going to use 3, okay? So the 2 stars I have up there, the one on the left is the index finger. This is if the kid is throwing with 2 fingers on top of the ball. But of course, some kids who are younger may have to throw 3, okay? And I'll show you how that works there. You can notice that the stars on top, they're not straight across, okay? One star is a little lower than the other one because that's our fingers. My index finger is a little shorter than my middle finger, okay? So I'm going to show you how to hold the ball in the laces so that both fingers get a little bit better grip of the baseball, okay? You'll notice here that the ball has a backward C to it, the seams, okay? I always recommend little kids when they're pitching, if they're right-handed, to hold the ball with a backward C, because the seams on the top do not go straight across. They go from low and they gradually go up. And so my index finger, which is a little shorter, gets to be on the lower seam, and my middle finger, a little longer, gets to be on the higher seam. So the seams fit the fingers a little bit better, okay? Now, if a kid has to throw 3 fingers on top, same principle applies. The index finger would be here, middle finger is on the top part of the seam, and now the ring finger is on the lower part. So if a right-hander holds the ball with the C reversed, then all 3 fingers are getting a pretty good grip of that seam, okay? A left-hander would be the opposite. It would be a letter C so that the seams fit their hand a little better. Now ideally, I'd want that kid's thumb to be directly under the baseball, okay? But again, this has to do a lot with hand size. It's okay if little kids are putting the thumb off to the side if they have to, but that is a way that older kids can actually slow the ball down. So if I don't want to slow the ball down, I want the thumb underneath as best I can, depending on the kid's hand size. Now as kids get older, they also want to try to move their fingers together as close as they can. If the more space I have in between my fingers, the slower the ball is going to go. Now, not by a lot, but every little bit matters. So some kids, if they're little, they have to have space in between their fingers. But sometimes when they're older, they just put space because they think that's just what you do. As they get older, try to get them to move that finger close together. And that brings me to my second point, is making sure their fingers and hand are behind the baseball. That's why I have this line right here, is because it's simple physics. If I want that ball to go in that direction, I want to put my fingers directly behind the baseball, okay? One of the problems that a lot of young kids have, another mistake here, is the release, is that they don't get their fingers behind the ball, they come on the side of the ball, okay? Now, that's a problem because the ball does not spin properly. So one quick remedy that's been around for a long time, some of you guys may have done this, is you get a piece of electrical tape and put it around the baseball right here, just like I did. When the kid gets the proper grip and he throws, if he throws it correctly and his hand is behind the baseball, the tape should really be close to a continuous line when the ball is being thrown, okay? If the kid is letting go of the ball and his hand is on the side of the ball, obviously he's not going to get that same spin. So it'll allow you as a coach to see if their hand is behind the ball, and it'll allow the player a little bit better vision himself to see that real thick line, and he can tell whether he's throwing it properly or not. Now, there's a reason why a lot of kids do get their hands on the side of the ball, and I'm going to have you guys do a little experiment here with me. First off, the human hand, if I lay my hands down next to my leg, my palms are facing my leg. This is the natural way the hand works. If I bring my hand up here, okay, my palm is facing in. There's no stress on my elbow, nothing. If I lift my arm up here, the only thing that's being stressed is my shoulder to lift my arm. And my palm is facing inside here. So if everybody right now could take your throwing arm and put it up just like this, okay? Now, I want you to pay close attention to right in here and turn your palm towards me. Do you feel that strain? Okay, thank you. Now, what that means is this. This is the way the human body wants to throw a baseball, okay? Because there's no strain here. Baseball, we have our kids do this. And just taking my hand from here to here, I feel strain right here. That takes effort, okay? And so the natural way a hand wants to throw is on the side of the baseball. You have to get your hand to do it that way, and that's harder. Now, a little side note, that's one of the reasons why baseball can be a dangerous sport, because of throwing. You are asking your arm to do something it's not meant to do. Just turning my hand from here to here, I feel strain in my elbow. Imagine throwing 100 miles an hour and add to that strain, okay? Now, to add another little debate here, I don't want to open a can of worms, but I'm starting to see some doctors, and I even personally know a doctor who wrote a book on this, and it's controversial, but the basic premise of the book is fastballs are more dangerous than curveballs. Now, that's like blasphemy in baseball. But the thesis is basically, when I throw a fastball, you see that strain, you felt that strain in your elbow. When I throw a curveball, the palm is where it should be. That's the normal place where your arm is. So that's tough for me to accept. I still want to see a lot of the research on that. But you're starting to see more doctors and articles about that, because throwing this way is not the safest part for your arm. More strain than it is here. That's one of the theories why a lot of NFL quarterbacks do not get Tommy John surgery, because when they let go of the football, their hand is here as opposed to here, okay? But for our purposes here, we want the fingers behind the baseball, and that's a mistake. Kids are losing a lot of velocity and accuracy when they get their fingers on the side as opposed to that. Tape on the ball can be helpful there. Now, the second one is getting off their line. That's one of the big things I deal with my little kids. My son is going to be playing 11U this year. And so every year, every pitcher, this is a constant. Even high school kids, college kids, pro guys, they sometimes get off their line. So I have three versions here. The stretch, what I call the mini wind-up, and the full wind-up. I'll deal with the two extremes first. The stretch is always easier, in my view, for little kids because it's less movement, and they're starting with their feet on that imaginary line. So the stretch is, my feet are on that line already to start, and it's one less thing I have to do. My feet start on the line, therefore it's easier for a kid to stay on the line, okay? So up until last year, all my pitchers at age 8 and age 9, and at the start of their 10-year season, I only let them throw from the stretch. for that reason. So it's easier for them to stay on that line. Now, the full windup, in my opinion, is too big of a difference between the stretch. The big thing you will see little kids do, and I guarantee you've all seen this, they will start facing the catcher from the windup, and then right from the get-go, they will get away from that line by doing this. They step to the side or they step back on an angle, and right away, they pull their weight away from that line. Then when I bring my knee up, my weight wants to go over here. And so basically they end up zigzagging across that line way too much, okay? So the stretch can help with that. Full windup is tough for a lot of little kids, but let me tell you a little tip that you can do if a kid wants to throw a full windup. When they are coming set, I don't mind if they step to the side. I don't mind if they step out on an angle, but they have to keep their head rock still. So their foot goes to the side, but my head stays still. I can step back, my head stays still. So that's mandatory if one of my pitchers wants to go from the windup. They have to show me that they can keep their head still when they start their motion, because otherwise they're going to pull themselves away from that line. One of the things I did last year with all my 10-year-old pitchers, I did a mini windup. Now this is where leagues are starting to change the rules. I know Pete, I know the high school rules are going to change this year because you had a lot of pitchers doing some weird hybrid versions. And so they're starting to rethink some of the rules. But last year I didn't have any coaches object. I didn't have any umpires question me. So here's what I did for two reasons. First reason is it's to get away from that windup and stepping to the side. The second reason why I do a hybrid for my little kids is that stupid hole that's in front of every pitching rubber in every Little League field in America, okay? Problem is if I'm in the full windup, I have a tough job of turning that foot down into that hole, and my balance is all going to get screwed up. So what I told my kids is, start with your foot as if you're in the stretch, and just open up, put your other foot on the pitching rubber, and square up to the batter. Okay? So it's basically the full windup, except I'm starting with my foot right here. Now when I'm ready to go, there's no need to step back. I just go right to here. Okay? And then everything from there. That worked really well. My kids, 10-year-old kids, were able to do it very well, very good balance. They did not take them off that line, and as far as I know, that was a completely legal move. Okay? But again, keep an eye on your league rules, because sometimes that, I've been noticing that there's been some rule changes when it comes to those hybrid moves there. Number 3 is poor balance points. Okay? Yes, sir?
Is there any advantage or benefit to teaching kids the full or the partial windup or the stretch, other than the fact that that's the way we were taught when we were kids?
Any advantage to what? I'm sorry?
You can wind up at all.
Yeah, you should, if you're doing the stretch correctly and you're doing some of the other things here, there really should be no difference in velocity from the stretch and the windup, okay? But chances are, if there is a big difference from the stretch and these other ones, chances are they're not doing this. So I think what I'm going to say next would help you there, okay? All right, this picture right here is at his balance point. And a lot of kids simply do not get to this point. They're so anxious to let the ball go and throw that their first movement is forward and it's not back. There's a saying in baseball that is, you have to go back before you go forward. Hitters have to go back before they go forward. Pitchers have to go back before they go forward. Okay, so that's a big mistake a lot of kids make at every level. All right, when I was coaching with Pete, or Pete was a player, and there were professional pitchers there, that's constant. Stay back, get your weight back. Okay, now a couple little tips you can do to help kids keep their weight back more. First off is a proper knee kick. 2 things I always require from my pitchers when they're bringing their leg up. First off, this knee always has to come up at least parallel to the ground. Okay, their knee needs to be at the same level as their hip. You will find exceptions to this. On TV, you'll see pitchers bring that knee all the way up, but the higher you bring your knee up, the harder it is to keep my balance. Also, the more I bring my knee up, the more likely I'm leaning back, which is not something we want either. If the kid is bringing their knee up only to about here, okay, I can do that. Okay, it might be more efficient, but I'm probably not going to get a lot out of my legs. So the happy medium is parallel to the ground. Now, the second tip for that is not only do I want the leg up to be parallel to the ground, but I have to line this knee up with my back knee. Okay? So if I'm in a stretch, or if I'm in a wind-up stretch, whatever, my knee comes up parallel, but I have to bring it back so that this knee matches up with that knee. If I'm a little kid, many kids will bring their knee up, but they will go forward. The first movement is that. They never come back, okay? So knee up parallel, line up the knees. That will set them up for a good balance point. Second part here, bad posture. You guys all probably heard when you were little, your mom said, come on, pull your shoulders back, right? Shoulders back, head up, okay? We don't want that. We want our pitchers to have bad posture, okay? The reason why, if I'm a pitcher and I'm straight up and down with my shoulders back, my weight tends to be back on my heels when my shoulders are back. And when I go to home plate, I tend to fly that front shoulder out too soon, okay? So, have bad posture. You will see this pitcher's shoulders curl in just a little bit, okay? So it's like you slouch. Shoulders come in. Now, when I'm up in my balanced position, if my shoulders just curl in a little bit, that automatically puts my weight on more of the front part of my foot. That's athletic. Any sport you play, you gotta have your weight on the front part of your feet. I can go in any direction. I'm on my heels, I'm slow. So I bring my knee up, I don't want my shoulders back and my weight more on my heels. I want my shoulders curled. That makes me, that little tip right there, from here to here, is gonna make me more athletic, and it's gonna help me keep my front side closed just a little bit longer, okay? So these are small tips that can go a long way in helping kids get to that balance point and being more athletic when they get there. All right, now, I'm gonna have to flip back and forth, otherwise you'll stare at that video there. That's Mariano Rivera. And the fourth one, I will say that this is a very difficult one to fix. Anybody who has given pitching lessons before will say, if a kid comes to me and he's 10, 12, 13, 14 years old, and he has a horrible arm path, boy, that is really, really hard to fix. So this is something, kids that you're dealing with, age 8, 9, 10, this is something that really has to be ironed out very quickly, okay? So the first one I'm gonna talk about is glove down, thumbs down. So I'm gonna go back and we'll use this picture so you're not distracted by the video. You will notice that when this pitcher comes set with his knee up, his glove is facing down. Now, what that means is his glove is like this. One of the mistakes kids make, and this is all the way up to the major leagues, pitching coaches work on this with their guys. They're slow getting their arm up and over. Their arm path might be correct, but they're having a tough time getting it to the proper release point. They let go of the ball a little bit back here, and they hang everything. And so every pitcher's job is to try to get that ball out of the glove faster. If I keep my glove facing down like it is now, there's nothing preventing my ball from coming out. Free and easy. That little bit can help me. If a kid comes set with his fingers facing the sky like this, I can't take the ball straight down. My glove's in the way. I'm gonna have to pull it out and then down. So if a kid is from the stretch on my team, he better have his glove facing down. If he's going from the windup and starts with his fingers up at the sky, when he brings his knee up, he needs to turn his glove down. Now there's another reason, it's because hitters like me will take any chance I can get to cheat. I was not a good hitter. That was not my strength. I was good enough to get to AA as a shortstop, but I hit 209. And I had to rally, like the last 2 weeks of the season, to hit 209. I had a glove. I was one of those all glove, no bat guys, okay? That's why it turned me into a pitcher. So I was always looking for an advantage. And so one of the things I noticed a lot is pitchers would often tip off their pitches. And so I found that watching his wrist was very effective. So if I'm a pitcher going from the stretch and you guys are the batters, and I hold my glove like this, you can see my wrist. I notice that a lot of pitchers will hold a fastball like this and a changeup like this. See the difference? All right, me not being a great hitter, I needed to know that information. And so another reason for keeping the glove face down, not only does it make it easy to get the ball out, it hides my wrist so that batters like me could not steal the pitches, okay? Now, the second one, besides glove down, is thumbs down. And this goes with any thrower on the field. Whenever a player separates his hands, You know, Coach Durr was talking about catchers, okay? Could be the same thing with shortstops, outfielders, anything. Anytime you take the ball to your glove, your thumb needs to go down, okay? Thumbs down when you're getting ready to throw. This right here, this motion right here, taking the ball out, thumb down. That will cure virtually every arm path problem that kids will have. But what you will see at your age is this. Kids bring the ball out this way. That's a no-no. Okay? This will work in T-ball. It will not work at age 10. It will not work at age 12 on the bigger fields. They will not, their career will be over. They better be good at school because baseball is going to be done. Because you just cannot throw a baseball very far with your thumb up like this. So glove down, thumbs down when you separate. That will start them on a proper path. Now, the picture there is something that I teach. And I will be the first to admit, I know a lot of really good, well-respected baseball people that I respect who don't agree with me on this. So I'm just going to tell you my view, and it's okay, you're going to hear others as well. I believe that when players, especially pitchers, separate their hands, I believe the ball does not go back. I know there's a lot of drills where you'll have a kid separate and the ball goes back and up, okay? Mariano Rivera, you'll see the ball never goes back. The ball goes down on that arrow, down on the arrow, and straight back up again, okay? I believe that's the proper path. When the ball comes out of the glove, in some capacity the ball comes down. It does not come back, in my view, okay? As I said, one of the problems, kids have a tough time getting the ball out, up, and over, and I think this increases the distance of that path and does not help them, okay? I think I know where a lot of coaches, a lot of players get that, is it right there, it appears as if the ball's here. But the ball did not go away from the body. The body went away from the ball, okay? That's my view. So when I teach my pitchers, when they break their hands, I believe the ball comes down. How far down? That's a matter of preference. Mariano Rivera and me, when I pitched, the ball came all the way down. I lengthened that arm. Some pitchers are perfectly fine coming right here. If you remember from the Phillies a while back, Billy Wagner, he'd come right here. He'd kind of go here, but his thumb was down. So every pitcher is going to have their own variation of that, downward movement, how big of a circle they are, and it can also depend on what position they play. Catcher's going to be real short. Shortstop, turn to a double play, is going to be real short. Outfielder, that's going to be long. But it's still the process of coming down, not necessarily back. That's in my view. Now, one of the best drills I think that you can do with little kids is a throwing X drill, because I think it does promote a smooth rhythm and a good arm path. A throwing X drill is, if my partner is you guys, I'm going to stand sideways, my glove and my arm make an X. So the ball is on the outside of my arm. I'm here, and I can either hop, I can just step, a lot of variations, but basically I unravel my arms and I throw. And this motion right here creates a nice smooth rhythm in my arm path. And it promotes taking that thumb down, up, and over, okay? I always tell pitchers, pitchers should be a graceful motion. It should not be a power motion. And so drills like this help create that fluid, graceful motion, in my view. All right, the last one, only using their arm to throw. This is the difference between throwing and pitching. What you see there is Roger Clemens. He is finishing like a pitcher. Kids are not used to doing that because they play a lot of different positions. In every other position, most guys will throw a baseball and they will be at their tallest when they're finished. If I'm a shortstop and I field a ground ball, I'm low, I gradually come up, and I'm at my tallest when I'm done. That shortstop gets on the mound, his body's used to doing that, he goes from small and finishes tall. Where do you think every ball is going to go? Up in the zone. So pitchers have to, when they step on the mound, they're no longer a thrower, they're now a pitcher. So first off, the safety. If I use my arm to pitch, I just showed you just doing like this, add stress. The arm is not designed to do a lot of motion and work over your shoulders. If you ever done like drywall, painting, you got a lot of shoulder problems the next day. Okay, if you do that for a career, you have rotator cuff problems, because the arms are not meant to work over your shoulders. They're meant to be underneath your body, like this. That's why a softball team can have one pitcher who throws every game, every inning, because the force of the throw is down here, under the shoulder. You lift that arm up, you're not working the way the shoulder joint is supposed to move. Your elbow gets bent back like this. Elbow is just supposed to move like this. And then you guys did this, you got even more strain. So if anything we can do to relieve pressure from our arm, the better we are going to be when it comes to safety. The biggest tip I can give kids, and I tell this every day when my kids are throwing, reverse your shoulders and your hips. Little kids don't do that very often. What I mean by that is this. When I bring my knee up, my front shoulder, my front hip, the outside of my knee, and the outside of my foot are facing the batter, and my opposite side is facing second base. When I am done my pitch, they should have reversed. Now my back shoulder is facing you. Hip, side of my knee, side of my foot. Just like Roger Clemens is right there. Okay? So he reversed his shoulders, reversed his hip. What that does, it incorporates your strongest muscles in your body, which is from your chest down to the top of your knee. I rotate everything. I'm generating all the power I can out of the biggest muscles I have. And if I don't use those muscles, I have to use my arm more. A lot of little kids are taught, I think incorrectly, to throw and get ready to field. And so they do this. They throw, and they never rotate any of those and use those big muscles. Okay? And that works in the first level. When the fields get bigger, that's just not going to work anymore. Pitchers have to finish by rotating and reversing their shoulders and their hips. I talked about high to low. Okay, pitchers go from high, from tall, to small. They should be at their shortest when they're done their pitch. But as I said, because everyone else plays another position, they're so used to going low to high when pitchers need to go high to low, just like he did there. So a lot of times in the beginning of practice, I will do these pitching progressions so that every kid on my team learns the proper motion if we need a pitch. The first one is a figure eight. Figure eight is they square up to a partner, they put the ball in front of them, and the only foot they're going to move is their throwing side foot. They do figure eight. Down to my glove hip, over to my throwing hip, throw, and they stick that finish just like Roger Clemens right there. Just like that. So I always say to them, front shoulder, back shoulder, reverse those shoulders. Front side, back side. And they stick that landing so their body gets used to finishing with the shoulder, hip, side of the knee, and so forth. So the right foot ends up like that, so I can rotate. Kids will make the mistake on this drill and they won't move that right foot and their hips stay still. They got to turn that foot so that hip faces. Second part of that is set, step, and finish. Set, step, finish. Just like you did before. Okay? And then the last thing, just to take that basic throwing progression and turn it into a pitching drill, is you add a knee kick. Knee kick, step, finish. Okay? And we do it in that progression, and I force the kids, be a stickler. I always tell them, be like a gymnast. Gymnast does the flips on the mat, and the big goal is to stick the landing. So you're a pitcher in practice, you stick every landing right here. But you're at your level, you'll see kids do everything like this. They'll pop up, they'll fall this way, they'll fall that way. No, stay on your line, stick your landing. Force your body to say, this is how I want you to finish. Just like that. Do not worry about fielding until you finish right here. Finish your pitch. Be a pitcher, don't be a thrower. All right. Last up here, some practice and bullpen things. These are things that I do with my little kids all the time. First one, I think, is a great exercise. It's called a short box or a short pen, whatever you want to call it. If you pay attention to a lot of Ex-pitchers talk, like Greg Maddox, a lot of guys in the Braves, they'll say, kids don't throw enough. But then you have the dilemma, well, if my kids throw more, I don't want to hurt their arm. So how do you do both? How do you throw and not hurt your kid's arm? One of the best things that we do, I think, is a short box. Every one of my pitchers does at least one of this per week. This year, we're going to be throwing 50 feet. That's the distance. So once a week, I will have my pitchers do a short box, which is 40 feet. Shorten the distance. I move the catcher up about 10 feet. The focus for that short box is mechanics, accuracy, and rhythm. It makes no difference about velocity. So I will have my 11-year-old kids shorten that distance, and they will just, their motion will be this slow. And that's all they're working on. Okay? Not working on velocity, those things there. Mechanics, accuracy, and a smooth rhythm, shortening up the distance. They are throwing more, but not stressful throwing. Certainly, I'll have them throw normal, because they need to throw that distance from the game. And then, usually once a week, I'll have a long box. They're going to be throwing 50 feet. I want them to now pitch from 55. Throw 5 to 10 pitches at 55 feet. Okay? That's where I'm developing a little bit of arm strength, working on accuracy, because if the kid can throw strikes in the zone at 55 feet, when they walk up at 50, that seems a lot easier, and therefore I'm building confidence as well. Okay, those are the basics. I don't think pitching has to be any more complicated than some of those basic points, okay? I could spend hours talking about all the finer points of each one of those things, but I'm hoping that I passed on some practical things so that when your kid's struggling out there, you at least have something to say. Hey, line up those knees, okay? Curl those shoulders in. Check the grip. All those little things that really can go a long way.